Okay.
Welcome to Stranger Connections, where I celebrate wonderfully weird people and quirky stories. I'm your curious beast and host, Lisa David Olson, the practically world famous business humorist, interactive speaker, and speaker trainer. So reach out if you want me to help reignite your team or event, or you want to start your journey to the TEDx stage. Well, you may have heard the word vibe. You know, V like Victor, vibe, to vibe. It's a noun defined as the exchange of energy between you and the world. But that's not enough. I need to know more. Please welcome Jason DelGandio.
Hi, Lisa. How are you doing?
Good. I saw your stuff and I'm like, I need to know more about his stuff, which is the 20-minute vibe. So I'm going to ask you my Lisa like questions, which is, so what, you some kind of hippie or what?
Perhaps so. I might have a little hippie in me. I wouldn't classify myself as a hippie, but I'm very comfortable around hippies. Having said that, though, I think that the experience of the vibe is all around us. It's not just relevant to hippies. So, for instance, you are a comedian, you are a performer, and I would assume that when you are on stage, um, you are attuned to the energy of the audience. It's what drives your performance.
Absolutely.
Um,
Great example.
right. It drives your charisma, and I would say that's true for athletes, for musicians, for public speakers, etc. Right. And so, although in our society we tend to associate the word vibe with hippies, which I understand why, I think it's much more widespread than that. In fact, I would invite your listeners for the next week or so to take notice of how often they either use the word vibe or they hear the word vibe, and I guarantee within a week of time, they'll be shocked and surprised how often they come across the word.
Wow. Okay, so here in the Midwest, that's like seeing white-tailed deer, the deer running away from you. So now we're going to exchange that with the word vibe. And so is it related at all? Is the vibe related at all to adrenaline or being excited?
I would say it's related, but not the same thing. So, I am a scholar, I'm a thinker, I'm an intellectual, I'm a philosopher, and I take the vibe as a site of intellectual investigation, right? And so, for me, I want to categorize the vibe as its own phenomenon and as its own experience. And so, we can think of the human being, the human experience, as involving a variety of affective experiences, affective with an A, right? So, emotions, psychology, adrenaline, nonverbal communication, vocalics, paralinguistics, not what you say, but how you say it, but also this other thing that we call the vibe. So, as you said earlier, the exchange of energy between you and other people. Now, of course, the question becomes, what do you mean by this word energy? Because that can mean all kinds of things, right? So, for instance, is this energy physical or metaphysical? Is it material or immaterial? Is it spiritual or scientific? Or perhaps it's all of these things. And so, although I offer up a definition, I don't want to use just one paradigm to understand this because we're all different human beings. We all have different experiences. And so, I try to invite people to access this thing they call the vibe in whatever way they see fit.
So just to be aware is the first step. And you have a fantastic website and it's all around the 20-minute vibe. So what would one do with a 20-minute vibe? That sounds exhausting. It sounds like I have to do something like jogging.
um, the reason why it's called the 20-minute vibe um, is that most people don't have time for to study the vibe for for years and years and years and decades, and so I'm offering up short bursts of information that's accessible, that is manageable. So, for instance, spend 20 minutes a day thinking about the vibe and experiencing the vibe, as opposed to 20 years or 30 years or 12 hours a day, etc. So I'm essentially offering up vibe related content and very accessible chunks of information. And it's really geared towards those who are intellectually curious and who are progressively minded, that are interested in this thing we call the vibe.
Yeah, and I think it sounds to me like you've done all the hard work. We get to just go, oh, I'm going to dip a toe in here because I know there's a lot on your website. There's courses we can take. There's different blogs that I don't know if you call it a blog, but you have different writings, and there's some very interesting writing in there. And one of the essays I found, it states this. I'm going to read it back to you. Look at any playground, and the evidence is obvious. From an early age, we start badgering each other to dress, act, and talk in a very specific way. Falling out of line invites ridicule and outcasting. God forbid if Mary likes short hair or Johnny likes Barbie dolls. At some point, it just becomes easier to give in. Just follow the norm, even if the norm deadens your soul. Wow. So you're really saying be your unique self. And for me, that's being creative too, and saying, as school goes on and we learn we have to color inside the lines, or 1 and 1 is 2, not 11, or bunny ears, or peace. It sounds aligned like that. It's about exploring, right?
Yes, 100%. Yes. So, I'm very much a proponent and advocate of being yourself, being your true inner self, being your authentic self. And I think that itself brings with it its own kind of energy and its own kind of vibe. Um, at least for myself, and I would assume for many other people, that when you encounter someone who is truly authentically them, right? It's kind of an invitation. It's uplifting, it's refreshing, and I like people who are authentic, who are themselves, make me feel at ease, and so on. And I think that's also part of the vibe itself. That if you follow your own kind of vibe flow, for instance, you find a way of really evoking who you are. You're being in the moment. You're being present to yourself as to the world around you, and that itself is just a very uplifting, positive experience.
And so, how do we tap more into this and make it a daily practice?
It's a question everyone asks, and it's not as easy to answer as one would think, especially if I've been studying this for 30 years. However, having said that, the basic way I would explain is that number one, um, try to be more aware of your body, right? Your body in space, how you are feeling, etc. Right. Then number two, be more aware of your surroundings, right? What's happening around you? Who are the people? How are things located and arranged, etc. And then from there, it'll help you be more in touch with the energy you're giving off, with the energy that other people are giving off, and you can tap into that. And so again, I'll use you as an example here. When you're on stage, you have to be aware of your body, you have to be aware of your audience, and then somewhere in between there, you have to negotiate and navigate that playing field, right? And I think that is kind of the exchange of energy that we're talking about. And to further extend that, I'm sure you've heard this before as a performer, but we're all performers on a stage all the time, right? Whether you're actually on a stage, or you are teaching, or you're at the grocery store waiting online, whatever the case is, in some way you're always playing out some kind of script in your mind relative to our society, to our culture, to expectations, etc. Right? And so the vibe is helping us to further along that whole process, but hopefully in a way that's more freeing and more enjoyable.
Oh, I like that a lot. And it makes it okay to explore that and not just be, for one, yes, we're in the moment, but also digging deeper and allowing to go, but why does it feel like this? Or why am I attracted to go talk to that person at the party? And, why am I motating towards these people? I think that's what I was picturing when you were saying this about being aware of your surroundings. I'm picturing that. There's sometimes the opposite. I might be at a store and I immediately have to leave. I can't tell you why. I don't know if anybody else has that. You get overwhelmed, or I don't know what it is. And all of a sudden I'm just like, I'm out, and it must be what would be the opposite word of vibe then?
Well, all that is a vibe, right? So you can have, so there's a common saying in our society where good vibes only, but that's not really the reality of it, right? You have
Right.
good vibes, you have bad vibes, you have chill vibes, you have ugly vibes, you have a million different kinds of vibes, right? And so the more you tune yourself to this thing we call the vibe, you start to distinguish between different kinds of vibes, right?
Mm.
And again, going back to being a performer, you know when an audience is into it, and you know when an audience is not into it. You know when they're there and listening to every word, or they're tuned out and they don't care what you have to say, right? And in that moment, though, you have to adjust your performance to account for that.
Excellent. Excellent. I can dig it. I can understand that. Now, you said you've been studying this and researching for 30 years. Tell me more about that, your background, and how this is what you landed on.
Yeah. So first, I do want to laugh at myself because I do take this seriously, but I also recognize kind of the strangeness of it, to kind of use the language of the show here, right? Not a lot of people study the vibe, right? So for me in my late teens, I got involved with all kinds of underground scenes, the rave scene, jam bands, underground house parties, all that kind of stuff. And everyone, including myself, was using this word, a vibe, to describe their experiences. But at some point, I realized that none of us were actually defining it. So I took literally at the age of about 19 or so, I took an intellectual interest in this thing we call the vibe. Then I wrote my first paper on the vibe in a college class on nonverbal communication. Then I went to graduate school and used both my master's thesis and my doctoral dissertation to write about the vibe. And then flash forward many decades later, and here we are on your show talking about the vibe.
And how do you use this in your daily day-to-day work? Is this how you survive? Is this paying the mortgage?
Well, yes and no. So I'm a college professor at Temple University in Philadelphia. And at Temple, my major area of emphasis is the theory and practice of social justice. So I study activism and social movements. That's what my classes are about, things like that. My vibe stuff, though, is kind of outside of Temple. It's kind of my own personal interest over my adult life. And although I am an expert on it, it's not really part of my expertise at Temple. Having said that, though, I do give talks, I do teach classes outside of Temple, etc. That makes a few bucks, but it's not exactly paying the bills. We'll say that way, right? It's kind of like being a performer sometimes or an actor, where it's what you do, it's your passion. It doesn't necessarily pay the bills, but it's part of your life. Yes.
Yeah, you just described me. Heck yeah. I'm a speaker, but believe me, I'm working the 9 to 5. It's more like an 8 to 4, but yeah. People would say that to me. Why don't you just speak full time? Yeah, why don't you tell me what to do for one? But also, hello COVID. I'm glad I didn't just go, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm all in. So, but then what are you doing besides? I mean, you are definitely book smart and way into it. And now you took all your learnings. You're a professor. Obviously, everything surrounds that. But what are you doing for fun? What makes you just throw caution to the wind and do something for fun?
I love music. I love live music. I love camping and being in nature in the woods. I'm a big sports fan, in particular a football fan. I love hanging out with my friends, drinking a few beers, busting chops and laughing and stuff like that. So yeah, I like to think of myself as a well-rounded person, although I'm very much an intellectual and I take that stuff seriously. At the same time, though, if you met me in a bar, you would probably never think I was a professor.
That's fun. I like that. And also on your website, there's a lot of talk about the band Fish.
Yes.
Why? Why?
Um,
No
so it,
reason. I'm not against fish. They're awesome.
I've been a lifelong fan of Fish. I really since my late teens. Again, they were a part of the experience of me helping understand the vibe. Um, Fish has a very dedicated following. Their music is very improvisational, and I think with improvisational music, although or improv in general, it brings with it a certain kind of energy and vibe. In other words, you are present in the moment when you improv, right? And that
Mm.
evokes a certain kind of connection between you and your listeners or your audience or other people. And that kind of uh, let's say performative gestalt, so to speak, I think is very evocative, and it's very intriguing to me. I like being in the moment with other people.
I like that a lot. And does this mean that you're also following fish? Are you a fish head? Is that what they would be like? Like a
So
deadhead?
yes, yes, I would be a fish head. Yes, so we back in the day there was deadheads, and I guess there still are deadheads, and nowadays there are fish heads. Actually, I was at a there's a branch of study called fish studies, where it's academics who study the band fish, right?
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, the first conference on fish was back in 2019, May of 2019, and there's actually another fish studies conference coming up this May, which I'll be attending as well out in Oregon.
And have you met any of them? Do they know that they matter so much to a lot of your work and your studies?
Oh, you mean the band fish?
The band, yeah.
Oh no, I've not met the band. No, perhaps one day. I don't know. That would be a dream come true, but I have not met them in person. No, that has not happened.
All you gotta do is email. It's magic. I got you. I got you here.
What I tell you what, you tell your people to get in touch with their people, and their people get in touch with my people, and we'll have a big party.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the courses that you offer. There's a few different things. People can go to your website, the 20minutevibe.com, and check out some different courses.
So currently, I have two courses up, although more coming in the future. My first course was entitled What is the Vibe?" An introduction. It's about 2 hours long, and I just kind of walk through my own philosophy of the vibe, what it is, how to define it, how do other people talk about the vibe. In other words, we're surrounded by vibe talk all the time, and trying to delineate what people are talking about. I go through different kind of traditions, look at it from a spiritual side, look at it from a scientific side, etc., and hopefully people will walk away with a more expansive, and also a deeper understanding of the vibe. Then the second course I have up there that I just posted, I believe, over the summer, it's about sports and the vibe. So I was trying to look for a topic that is more accessible to a wider audience. And I thought sports would be a great experience. So, for instance, it's the bottom of the fourth quarter, you're down by a touchdown, 80,000 fans are screaming, and you feel the electricity in the stadium, right? So the
Mm.
sports vibe. So in other words, how do we as fans understand the experience of the vibe or energy in watching our teams, cheering for our teams, etc., but also the experience for a coach, the experience for an athlete relative to peak performance, being in the zone, and so on.
Have you had anybody give feedback that they've taken your course or just tapped into it more and how that might have changed something that they thought, whether it be sports or not, but anything that any kind of feedback that somebody could give as an example of how it helped them or made a difference?
I would say the general feedback is usually that um, they never really thought this deeply about the vibe, right? Most people just use it as a catchphrase, like it's like almost like a catchphrase or a metaphor for emotion or a feeling. But then once you stop and actually think about the vibe, it kind of opens up your own experience, and you can start to put words and ideas to your own feelings. In other words, you have now a language to understand your experience of the world.
Well said. And I'll say it again, 20minutevibe.com. Check him out. And before I let you go, Jason, I need to know if you have a dare or a prank story, one you've done or had done to you.
So this relates back to me being a sports fan and enjoying sports and whatnot. So I have a tattoo on my back shoulder of the logo of the Philadelphia Eagles, which is a football team in the NFL. Now the catch is though that I'm a New York Giants fan. So I'm a diehard Giants fan, and the Giants and Eagles are arch enemies. And essentially, the long story short is I lost a bet. So a few years back, I think it was summer of 2017, I was hanging out with my buddy Michael and I. We're having a few beers, hanging out, and he's an Eagles fan. He's talking all kinds of smack about how the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl. And I say, look, I'll tell you what. If the Eagles win the Super Bowl, I'll get a tattoo of the Eagles on myself. And he had no skin in the game. I didn't say, well, if they lose or anything, he has to get a tattoo. And I was like, there's no way they're going to win the Super Bowl. That year they started off, I think, 10-1 or 11-1, the Eagles. And I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. Now their starting quarterback though got hurt. They blew out his knee. So I'm like, oh great. I'm texting him. I'm making fun of him. I got this. I'm in the clear. The backup quarterback comes in. They go on a playoff. They go on a playoff run and they win the Super Bowl. And now I have a tattoo on my body of the team I hate the most in the NFL.
And it wasn't even a money thing. It was just you were talking smack.
Right, exactly. Yeah, he was so confident they were going to win the Super Bowl. And again, this is 2 months before the season starts. I'm like, there's no way they're winning the Super Bowl. No one thought they were winning the Super Bowl. They weren't even supposed to win the division. And then I personally got it on my back shoulder, so I don't have to see it every day.
Right.
But now during this, and I forget I have it in the summertime at the beach. Though people say, "Hey, go Eagles, go Birds, love your tattoo." So I'm like the scarlet letter here. Like I have this thing on my body that I hate.
And if you ever covered it up, would that make you not holding out on what you promised that you would do?
Well, at this point, it's been what about 6 or 7 years. So at this point, I'm like, well, can I let this go? Can I get it removed or do something with this? I mean, I paid my dues. I was
Right.
honest. I held by my bet, but it might be time to let go of this tattoo. Yes, I agree. It might be time to move on.
And it does cover your entire back is what I'm
Oh no,
picturing.
it's
No,
not
I
that
know.
big. It's oh no, it's. But you can see it though. Like it's not that small. Like if you walk by and I don't have my shirt on, you will see it.
Yeah, if you've got strangers walking by with sports analogies just because they saw you, yeah, it's big enough to be seen across the beach. Wow, that is a really great story. You are so interesting, and I'm honored to have had you as a guest, Jason DelGandio, and remember we can only be strangers once, and that I invite you to stay weird.
I appreciate that. You too.